even for a day. Okay, so we started, Rod. So I'm just having lunch. This is the Senate cafeteria. You know the man, you know the legend, you know the television personality, the reporter. Did you know he was once a reporter for the Deseret News? And that he went to the University of Chicago? Who knew that? How come you're not? I would put that, if I got accepted to the University of Chicago, I'd get that into every conversation, Rod.
Put it on my forehead.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
East High guy?
East High guy, yeah.
Did you write at East High?
No. I didn't do anything.
Were you a troublemaker?
No, I wasn't a troublemaker. I was just a nerd.
A nerd?
Yeah.
Before it was cool. What was it like? This would have been in the 70s and 80s, I suppose. What was it like writing for a newspaper?
I liked writing for a newspaper. I got to be a columnist, and I liked writing columns, and I still miss them sometimes. You get to say what you want, and it can be fun.
Anybody ever squash one of your columns?
Yes, my columns sometimes got squashed. And they sort of wish they'd have squashed more. The bosses got in trouble from the ownership for some of the columns, but more often than not, I got them in most of the time.
So, what was the biggest scandal when you were at the Desert? Look, you're not, at least now. I mean, maybe you were back then, but you were not Bishop material.
That's true. I was never Bishop material.
And so they went ahead and hired you at the D-News because you were a good writer.
They didn't just hire Mormons there, and though they hired a lot of Mormons then, more than now. I think a lot of people at the Deseret News now are not Mormons. A lot of their writers,
right?
But there were fewer of them, but still quite a few, and religion wasn't an issue. My religion wasn't an issue. If I tried to criticize the church, that was an issue.
Did you try to sneak it in ever?
Yeah, I tried to sneak it in quite a bit, but sometimes I could and sometimes I couldn't. Yeah, I was younger then, and I was more critical of the church than I am now.
Would it, like liquor issues, that kind of thing?
Liquor issues, yeah. The church business interests. I got in trouble for trying to say nice things about Planned Parenthood.
Oh, wow.
And stuff like that. Pornography. I then thought censoring pornography was a bad thing. I'm less. I guess I'm still something of a libertarian, but I'm less sure I'm right.
You're more. You're
older.
You're more anti-porn now than you used to be when you were young.
I'm still not very anti-porn. What I am is I'm pro-porn, but not sure I'm right. Then I was First Amendment, and I was sure I was right. Now, what the heck? I may be right. I may not.
Is that true with everything in life? Now that you're a little bit older?
Yeah, almost everything. Almost everything. Then I knew. I had principles, and I stuck up for them, and I was sure of them. Now I don't have so many principles, and I don't stick up for them when I'm not very sure of them.
This is the worst story I've ever heard, Rod. I used to be a man of principle, and now,
No, I'm just sort of wishy-washy.
It happens.
I don't know.
When you're 18 or 19 or 20, you know the answer to everything, and I noticed, my sense is my knowledge has declined over the years as well, or at least my certainty has declined over the years. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't know that I know any less. Maybe I do, but I certainly am less certain that I'm right.
In those days, in the 70s, and then as you moved into television and went to work for Channel 2, it was a different atmosphere. I mean, the FCC had regulations that pretty much said there's going to be local ownership, and there was local ownership. You had guys like pioneer George Hatch, who owned Channel 2. You had for a while the founders there at Channel 4, although that went around. You had the LDS Church, which certainly was there locally. You've been there through this corporatization of the media and turning it into a business. It seems to me to have been a bad day in history, the day the FCC said, go for it.
Well, I'm kind of a market guy, but again, I'm not as sure as I was. I would have said let them buy and sell, a capitalist acts between consenting adults. But maybe in the way of the news, while you may well be right, that especially here in Salt Lake, I think that Hatch and Channel 5 competed, and both of them plowed a lot more money back into news than was typical of stations around the country, and both of them cared a lot about their news product. And we still get more money than most other stations, and so does 5. They get, I think, more money than we do. I don't know, but so we still outspend some of the others. But you have a management that has a corporate ethic, and they want you to do well. But it's different than a local owner who understands the community and wants to be.
I mean, with George Hatch, the founder of Channel 2, when he sat down at the end of the day, he watched his own news, and it was pride, and it was him, and it was his community, and the guys in Texas or Alabama or New York that own the stations now are they're looking at the bottom line, not at.
They'd like for us to do really good news, but they'd like maybe even more for them to make a lot of money. Not always compatible.
Tell me how that affects what happens to the news, or does it not?
I'm sure it affects it some, but it's pretty subtle. Mostly the people who run the newsroom still want to do good news, and TV's always cared deeply about ratings. We get how many people watch that. You get to sell ads on the basis of how many eyeballs you deliver, and that's always been a big deal for TV.
Even in the old days.
Yeah, it's always a big deal.
So for as long as I could remember, KSL won the 6 and 10 o'clock news. I mean, we're talking 10, 15 years.
And since they hired Norse Welty and James, and that was like in the 50s.
And then something happened. Channel 2 gained, and actually overtook them, or still has overtaken them?
We overtook them, but they're back on top. They beat us these last 2. And I think they spend more money than we do. I think that's part of it. And I think some Mormons like to watch. I think they have an appeal to some Mormons, but they do a good job. And I think when they went down, it was because they lost Norse. They lost their anchors, and anchors are a big deal, and I think they lost some audience then, and they had to recover, and they're in the process of that now. They may have done it.
And people used to say KSL will always be number 1 as long as there's...
But they weren't for several years.
Right, no, I'm saying, but somehow Channel 2 broke through that. And
I think it was when they lost their anchors.
That did it.
Yeah.
Dick Morris went away, and nobody...
Yeah, and
Bob Welty.
Some of the others,
Paul
went
James.
Away. Yeah, and it... I think that they lost ratings.
You have a very unique style in television. You had it when you started many, many years ago. You still have it. Everybody knows who you are. You have a signature way that you talk. You have a signature compact style. Did you sit down and say, okay, this is what I'm going to be, this is what I'm going to do, this is how I am, my consultant said do this?
I just do it. I mean, that's just the way I do it. I don't Seems to be okay.
Is the media okay? I mean, the president's counselor said to the New York Times, back off. Just in the last few days.
Okay, first off, the media's in trouble long term. Nothing to do with Trump. The newspapers are dying. The TV audiences are old, and they are less than they used to be. A lot of people get their news on the internet, and internet news. There was an old model, and it worked for newspapers especially, and for TV. The old model was the ads pay for the news, and the news attracts audience for the ads. But now you don't have to attract audience for ads. You can just put up the ads, and they are so specific that only the people who want the specific thing come and look for it. So you don't need a big audience for your ad. You just need somebody to know that if I want a car, I click here, and if I want a coat, I click here, and you don't need nobody else need look.
So what's going to happen?
Well, I don't know what's going to happen, but the newspapers are in big trouble. The Tribune went essentially bankrupt. I guess they did technically go bankrupt. The Deseret News had to restructure, and they are and all over the country, newspapers are cutting staff and shutting down. TV isn't as bad, but the glory days are gone.
What won't they let you cover that you would like to? I mean, as long as this is a business and somebody goes, whoa, you know, those toes are too big, or we're going to alienate the audience, or is there any big story out there? And
I don't know anything like that. I think they're pretty. I'm not terribly rambunctious. I don't go around looking for trouble. I did when I was young, but I don't do that so much anymore. But no, there's nothing that I want that I know of that I can't do. The stuff that I can't do, I had a hard time getting your income tax bill on TV because they thought it was dull. There aren't sacred cows. We want to do murders and cops and shoot them up.
Cat videos.
Yeah, and they let me do politics, but they aren't terribly enthusiastic.
So if there's a list of 10 things, they're saying politics is in the middle of the barrel, or
toward the bottom.
Toward the bottom.
It depends on what the 10 are. I don't know. Politics more maybe than alfalfa growing, but considerably less, say, than crime.
So crime would be up here.
Yeah, crime's probably the most interesting thing.
Is it really the most interesting? It must be, right?
Well, yeah,
you guys
I
poll
kind of
and
believe
you know,
that.
you know.
Yeah, those guys are smart guys, and they pay really close attention. I don't pay very close attention, but they really look to see what works, and what seems to them to work is a really good crime story.
One of the great shows over the decades was your Sunday night show right after the 10 o'clock news. Everybody watched it. Everybody watched it every week. And then it suddenly disappeared, and they started putting sports in there or something.
Yeah,
I'm assuming the demographic was bad or something.
It wasn't attracting the audience as much as sports. And so I went out and sports was it. We may have had Take Two, was what it was called. It may have been the last show of its kind in a good time slot in America. The Sunday morning they do stuff, right, and the networks do stuff. But on Saturday night Sunday night at 10:30, that may have been the last one.
The dumbing down of America. Is it?
Now,
give me a break. It's true.
Okay, now the people get on the internet and learn stuff. People still
exactly.
read stuff.
They get on the internet and they learn
TV.
it, and look at what they learn.
Well, the internet has real problems. We don't know quite what to do about it. People put on fake news and one thing and another.
Like we have a president who puts on fake news.
Well, I don't know that he puts on fake news. He is often factually inaccurate. He's often wrong.
Okay, Dan Rather.
Yeah.
Helen Thomas, that fiery woman. Sam Donaldson screaming at presidents, saying, "No, Mr. President, answer the question." You have this little kind of namby-pamby group of media these days that just gets steamrolled, both locally and nationally.
Now it seems to be, I look at the New York Times, and they're just as mean as they can figure out a way to be to Donald Trump. I think if there's if Trump poses a threat to the media, the lesser threat is that he'll censor and throw people in jail. Obama threw a lot of sources in jail. He much more so than Bush, and I don't know whether Trump will do that. But less that he'll throw people in jail than he'll make the media so damn mad that they forget about being fair and objective. They just beat up on Donald Trump and they get away with it. And I don't know that'll hurt them. I don't think very many Trump supporters read the New York Times now. But it would be bad if it were generally accepted in America that large parts of the mainstream media are simply partisan.
Tell me about who was the governor when you first started working in politics?
Cal Rampton.
Holy smoke. Rampton,
Matheson, Bangerter, Leavitt, Walker, Huntsman, Herbert. I think I got them all.
Dumbest.
None of them were dumb.
Okay, but there's a
None of
list.
them were-
None of them are dumb, but one was more smart
I'm
than
not
the
gonna
other.
Say that dumb. Okay, Matheson and Rampton were awfully smart. Leavitt got a lot done, and he speaks well. Bangerter was just sort of an ordinary guy, never graduated from college, but he was a really good governor. There was a sort of Harry Truman to him. He made decisions and he did the best he could, and I thought he did really well.
Did you think John Huntsman got bored?
John Huntsman, I think, probably wanted to be president, and he wanted to be ambassador to China.
More than he wanted to be governor.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Who did you like the most? Who would you like to most have gone out and had a drink with, or a Diet Coke?
I don't know.
Or a Pepsi, which
I
just
like-
doesn't happen to be here. Pepsi.
I like politicians, and I liked all of the governors.
Okay, but one, you're gonna go out and have a drink at.
Matheson didn't like me.
He didn't like you.
No.
You were a young whippersnapper,
That's
probably
right.
asking him
I
questions,
guess, yeah,
following up.
I bothered him. Yeah, he didn't like me very much. But Bangerter liked me and Leavitt liked me. I got along.
Who's the most effective?
The office has declined. The legislature has risen in power, and the office of governor is not, no matter who it is not nearly so strong as the governor used to be. The legislature's risen in power partly because they've got more staff, more time, but mostly because they're all Republicans and they all come back year after year after year, and they all hang out and they think they know what's best. Now, maybe they do. And it used to be that the governor was the professional among amateurs. Legislators rolled over a lot. They didn't spend a lot of time at the Capitol. They weren't here so long in terms of 20 years as a legislator. So the governor would say, here's what I think we ought to do. And the legislators would say, sounds reasonable to me. That's not true anymore. Legislators know or think they know what's good. And so they don't follow the governor. It doesn't matter who it is.
So, the speaker,
Yeah.
Mr. Hughes, doesn't really get along well. I don't think that's a secret. I mean, they don't like each other.
It's
The
Hughes
governor,
and the governor.
the governor, yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
So you knew that, Ron. Is that the pattern? Do speakers not get along with governors
No,
generally?
in the past, why there have been people who didn't get along, but by and large, especially if they're of the same party, they got along pretty well. Mm-hmm. They talked and they hung out and they tried to work together. That was mostly the way it worked.
So, talk about your colleagues. My sense is that it's not as much about Woodward and Bernstein and wanting to get to the truth and being there as much as it is being famous, and a lot of the younger television reporters
Being famous
today.
is good.
I wouldn't know, but I'm
You're pretty
saying,
famous, and you do stuff to attract attention,
But-
as near as I can tell.
But I get the sense that a lot of reporters today don't know the difference between the county mayor and the city mayor, and don't really. Look, my guess is you still read newspapers online. You still have books at home that you read.
I get
you want to know
newspapers.
what's going on. You get newspapers. What about this younger generation? Are you okay with them? Are they really into it? Are they newsaholics?
They seem to be a pretty good crowd. I think you're right that news has become sort of a job. In the old days, here, Lucky Severson would work. When he get a story, that's all he'd do is work. Now people work until quitting time, then they go home. And the stations have become more processed, and they use reporters more as interchangeably, say.
Right.
And you work and you go home, and it's in ways it's less exciting, but in ways it's more professional. And reporters, I think that at Channel 2, I think that we're smoother in terms of we have fewer glitches and technical glitches and so forth.
It's not as much fun to watch. Those old days when there was a lot of live stuff and you never knew quite what was going to happen, it was a little more exciting.
Okay, I think I don't know. I think they think smooth gets ratings, and maybe
I'm sure it does.
I don't know.
I
don't know.
Danny Ranger, who was the maybe the first news director at Channel 4, and may have gone on the air with Sid Fox there.
Okay.
Said one time, I don't know if this is true or not, but he said that very first live broadcast from Utah was at the point of the Mountain Jail, prison.
Yeah.
And he said the Today Show went live. And he said, we were down there because there had been a hostage situation at the prison.
Yeah.
And he said that the problem was 7 or 8 minutes before we were scheduled to go live, coast to coast, first time from Utah, and I won't use Danny's official language, but he said the guy surrendered.
Yeah.
So Ranger went out, started screaming in a colorful way, and said, get back in there. And they went back in and cued the surrender, and there it went live. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but that was a different day of television.
That was a very different day. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What's your favorite story? I mean, how long have you been doing television?
Since 72, no, since 80.
1980. Okay,
80.
so
But I did TV before then. I did TV at KUED. I had a weekly show.
Civic Dialogue.
Yeah.
I remember. So is there one moment that you're going to go, well, yeah, that's what I'm going to tell my grandkids?
No, there isn't one moment. It just seems to me that I do stuff every day, and sometimes it works out better than others.
Okay, disasters or story?
Oh, there have been a number of disasters. There was one where I didn't have the story, the tape, and so I sat there for about 5 minutes and didn't know what to do, and I was going like this and talking, and it was just wretched.
I'll bet it wasn't. I'll bet you wretched is better than 90% of the television people today.
I was wretched. I mean, it wasn't just wretched to watch; it was wretched to go through. Stuff like that happened to me. A lot of stuff like that happens to me. Yeah.
Rod Decker, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank
really
you.
Appreciate having you. We'll watch you tonight. You going to be on tonight?
I hope so. I haven't. Every day I try to sell a story, and I think I've gotten a couple.
Do you get paid extra if you sell one or
not?
No, it doesn't matter, huh?
No. If you don't sell them for a while, they fire you.
All right, Rod Decker will be back again tomorrow with breakfast at the Senate cafeteria. And frankly, you ever had better food?
For the price, this is very good.
Thanks, Rod Decker.